because that is Janvi asked the question, but that is what she presented. That what is Vakrokti in literary criticism. That is what was already presented. Yes, you can
Okay,
start
so
now.
yes. So it is the fourth day of my presentation, and I have chosen the topic two uses of language and four kinds of meaning, which is found in Practical Criticism and Principles of Literary Criticism, written by Ivor Armstrong Richards, a literary critic from early 20th century. So it is the introductory slide, and here I have pinpointed some information about the author and and his famous book Practical Criticism. So first of all, we will have some introduction here. Ivor Armstrong Richards, he was a poet, dramatist, speculative philosopher. So here philosophy matters to us, and psychologist and semanticist. He is among the first of 20th century critics to bring to English criticism a scientific precision and objectivity. So objectivity is what we have Jesse Ransom that he told Vachalata presented that we should be free from personal bias, a historical. So personal bias means the personal fallacy, and historical bias is also the historical fallacy. So we should be free from that, and by that we have to judge any literary text. So we all know this that. I Richards did an experiment to the students, and he removed the name and date of the poems, and then he gave to the students to analyze the thing. So it adds to the analytical skill of the students. So this precision and objectivity. So he is often referred to as the critical consciousness of the modern age. So here he is often referred to as critical consciousness of the modern age. So he was a prominent critic of this modern age. New criticism and the whole modern poetics derive the strength and inspiration from the seminal writings of Richards, such as Principles of Literary Criticism, Practical Criticism, Coleridge on Imagination. So, the foundation of aesthetics, which he wrote this work, the foundation of aesthetics, in cooperation with C.K. Ogden and James Wood, and the meaning of meaning. So, it is the very first work with Ogden of this critic. Now, Richard's influence rests primarily on his practical criticism. So here we are going to deal with this text, a topic from this text, and which is based on his experiments conducted in Cambridge, in which he distributed poems. So as I told that he did an experiment on his students that. And here is a critical remark that George Watson praises him that Richards is simply the most influential theorist of the century, as Eliot is the most influential of descriptive critics. Let us move ahead. So it was the introductory slide. Now, basically, two uses of language. So wherever the language is employed by the author or a critic or a poet, so chiefly there are two uses. In two ways they use their language. So in 34th chapter of his Principles of Literary Criticism, Richards propounds the concept of two uses of language. So there are chiefly two uses of language. The very first one is scientific use, which involves the much part of our logical regime, and second one is emotive use, which employs the emotional part of our consciousness. So what is there in scientific use? So So the use of words recall to objects. So it is factual data. If you want to provide factual data or some kind of reference, then you use the scientific use of words or language. And what is there in emotive use? So the use of words which evoke emotions. So whatever the phrases or words or any kind of sentential figures are used to evoke emotions in the readers or this listeners psyche, it is called this emotive use of language. So it is the basic thing of the use of any language. And we remember this 1984, this use of language by this dictator, and provides what is this second characteristic is that provides factual data and information. So as we told, it deals with the logic or informative aspect of the human being. So it provides factual data and information. Now what does this emotive use do? Provides sentimental approach towards literary text. So if you want to connect with any literary text, or you want your readers to connect with the logic or factual data, or you want to provide with them with such things, then you will use this scientific use or scientific use of language. And if you want your readers to reflect on emotionally, or you want to arouse any kind of emotions, then you will use this emotive use. Now here in scientific use, what happens that does the over literal reading of literary text. So it sometimes it becomes over literal, so more than necessary applying logic. So now and here in emotive use, it focuses on the emotive production. So here you will find that you will analyze the any literary text based on your logic, that how far this far this reach with this parameter of any ideal novel or poem or whatever. But here you will see how is it succeeded to produce emotion in the reader or listeners. Now here scientific use appeals to logical and comprehensive aspect of literary text. So here logic is predominant, and here appeals readers emotional side by sentimental situational settings. So what is this sentimental situational setting? So a poet or a author will kind of write in a way that provides a set of these sentimental situations. He will put these sentimental situations by emotive use of language to arouse emotions in the psyche of readers. Now, here this scientific use is chiefly used in prose, essays, and journals, as we have this Jonathan Swift, all the things. So they are very logical and they are very bitter in the scientific use of the language. And emotive use, as we have Wordsworth and all the things, Robert Burns, they are using this, and it is chiefly used in more poetry than fiction or novel. So sometimes we find it is in fiction or novel. So here, for example, I have taken an example from the poetry written by William Wordsworth. In order to delineate the concept mentioned, let us take William Wordsworth's famous poem "My Heart Leaps Up" to apply scientific and emotive reading. So how both the ways we can read this poem? It is very short poem. That first I will peruse through the poem. It is that my heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began. So is it now. I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old or let me die, the child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each by natural piety. Now, by doing scientific reading, we find that if one, especially poet, beholds a natural phenomenon like rainbow in the sky, if his or her heart leaps up, the person would be dead. Really, the heart will not leap up. Really, so it is the figurative use or emotive use of the language here. So we are doing scientific reading, though, so we can say the heart if leaps up, then the person would be dead. Another misunderstanding can happen in the lines. The child is father of the man. So generally, nobody will accept the how can a child be the father of the man? Why? Because it is hard to believe that how an unexperienced child can be the father of a grown man. But to read between the lines. Now we are doing this emotive or emotive reading of this text. Reading between the lines, readers are expected to develop insight which is not possible in scientific reading. And if we look through the lens of emotive use of the language in the poem, we find that it expresses elated and lofty feelings of beholding such a majestic natural phenomenon. That is to say that beholding rainbow in the sky, a sensitive reader may possibly recall his or her childhood and the joys of being a fresh life on the planet, surrounded by the beauty of nature. So it is the emotion that is aroused by these lines. If we do an emotive language study, it is there. And here are these four kinds of meaning. Now, these two uses of language, it was from the practical criticism, and it is from this it was from this text. Where is that? Principles of literary criticism. And now these four uses or four kinds of meanings are found in another text, practical criticism, written in 1923. So Richards provides the literary world with his views on meaning and its types. According to him, there are four kinds of meaning found in poetry, especially. So basically, he talks about poetry. So how there are only four meanings. Whatever somebody is speaking in front of you, only by four parameters you can analyze that. The one is sense. So what is sense basically? What speaker or author speaks. So what he speaks by the words, by the usage of language of the words. So it is the sense, and feeling. So writer's emotional attitude towards the subject. So any spoken thing is not bereft of this. Emotion. So whatever I am speaking, there is a kind of emotional urge in me. Only then and then I can speak very well. And tone, what is tone? Tone refers to attitude of speaker toward his listener. So tone means I want to pursue something, I want to persuade something you. This is the tone. So I will use this tone. That we find tone very problematic these days, but it is fine. And intention. Intention is the writer's aim, which may be conscious or unconscious. So intention. So here intention refers to the goal that suppose the poet writes on the wall. So it does not mean that he writes like I will take an example from that. He does not write to increase the war, but he wants to seize the war. So it is the conscious, or so we can say sometimes that in September 1, 1939, it is unconscious goal to establish this queer relationship in the society. That is why this poem. Who was that? Yes, he writes. Diaghilev and Nijinsky is a reference. So it is the unconscious aim or intention of the poet, right? So these are the four parameters by which one can judge the language spoken by the speaker. Now, what happens in sense that the speaker speaks to arouse the reader's thought and to provide you with the certain kind of thoughts. So this sense uh, is there, and feeling, it is an expression. And there, so feeling is there, but you how will you articulate the feelings through the words or through some kind of writings, right? Especially in poetry, I'm not talking about the other designs of that. And tone, so there is a kind of relation between speaker and listener. So your tone will change accordingly to whom you are speaking or to whom you are listening to, and it refers to the effect one tries to produce. See this intention. Suppose I am speaking to somebody and I want this person to think in certain way, then I will speak in certain tone, and it will be my intention or conscious or unconscious intention. This language is not poetic. Now, sense, it is not a language of poets. And feeling, this very language is emotive, poetic, and literary as well. Tone, since speaker is aware of his relationship with language and with the listener, he changes the level of words as the level of audience changes. So as I told you that who is your audience, so it is very much helpful while we are going to give a kind of seminar. And suppose your teacher is PhD and you are just this kindergarten child, then your teacher will not say you the philosophy, he will teach you ABCD. So it is the tone or it is the perspective of a speaker. And now intention, this purpose modifies the expression. So accordingly your intention, your purpose of speaking, the tone, feeling and sense will be modified. Okay, my purpose is to mend this thing, then I will speak in such a tone according to the speaker that I can derive the desired goals. And it is directs the hearers this sense. What does sense do? That directs the hearer's attraction upon some state of affairs. So there is a kind of event, if you want to express, then you will express this. And it is the basic sense and feeling. So only rhyme and meter cannot make poetry to be a good. Emotion is equally important. So suppose I am speaking like a machine here in front of you, then there will be no effect upon yourself or your psyche. Then I will have to use emotion. So emotion is somebody is saying that emotion is energy in motion. So E stands for, it is not so though, but E stands for energy. So energy in motion, in which motion? In motion of you are speaking. So if you have your psyche full of emotion, and if you want to express this, your expression will be changed than the ordinary things. So it means tone varies from listener to listener. Suppose we can take example from that. Uh, for example, Julius Caesar, he's talking to the people of Rome. He will be very kind of polite, but while he talks to his wife Calpurnia, perhaps, then he says, despite warned by his wife that there is some kind of portent, you don't go to the meeting. Then this Caesar and fear both are born on the same day, and I am more older than the fear. and fear fears of me, he speaks. So it is the tone. His tone changes from being polite to the being very rude or very egoistic person. Now, so and last one, intention. The emphasis shapes the arrangement of, to draw attention to something of importance. So intention basically, man takes no step without any intention. So I spoke it before in my previous season of presentation that whatever we are doing, there is a kind of urge of our intention. So intention forms our sense, feeling, and tone will be formed by who we are speaking to, right? And feeling is what we want to speak. How is it very vibrate within us, and sense, it is the basic use of words. Now let us move ahead. So I have taken this poem on being asked for a war poem to judge accordingly. To understand the four types of meaning in better way, we can refer to W.B. Yeats's famous ironical poem on being asked for a war poem, written on February 6, 1915. So here let us see that it was written in 1915. So we know that it was the aftermath of First World War. Rather during the First World War. So 1914 to 1918, the very First World War was in the way. So during the First World War, he wrote this in response to a request by Henry James and another Burton is also there, that Yeats compose a political poem about World War One. So his friend requested him. Now the understanding of all this aspect is part of the whole business of apprehending the meaning of poetry. Now. So it is the poem. It is the very short poem, as like we had in this Wordsworth one. Now, sense. If we apply sense to this, now sense is that which is communicated by the plain literal meaning. So it is literal meaning. So there is no need to go very deep. It is the very first layer or very the superficial layer of the poetry. We can say plain literal meaning of the words. When the writer makes an utterance, he directs his hearer's attention upon some state of affairs, some items of further thought and consideration. So, in the very first line, so the sense of the poem is given in the beginning lines of the poem that the poem is about some perilous time. Perilous time means the time of war, wherein the speaker seems to be ironically advising fellow poets to remain silent. So, ironically, he advises. Ironically means that he advises that you should speak instead of staying calm. So, he is ironically advising the fellow poets to remain silent, but ironically telling that all those who have hidden themselves should come out from the burrow and try to stop war. So he is criticizing this intellectual and poet. So it is that I think it better that in times like this, a poet's mouth be silent for in truth. So it is verbal irony employed here. That verbal irony, I told you earlier, that suppose I want to tell you that don't do this, then I will tell in a such a way that, okay, do this. This is very good. Huh? This is very good. So it is the verbal irony that whatever is told, it is not understood in this way by this listener. Now, how feeling? And feeling refers to the feelings of the writer. So, feeling means the feelings not only of the speaker or a listener, it is of the both. About these items, about the state of affairs, he is referring to. He has an attitude towards it. So, we can say that writer or a listener or reader, we can say, or interest some personal flavor or coloring of it. And he uses language to express these feelings. So, as I told you, that the expression of feelings are the language or the words. In poetry, senses and feeling have a mutual dependence. The sound of a word has much to do with the feeling it evokes. So sound is very much important while talking about this rhyme and meters. So we have no gifts to set a statement right. So what feeling do we get from here? It is that the feelings of the speaker is expressed more than that of readers. Right. The speaker seems to be in some kind of anguish. So anguish is a state where you cannot do anything despite knowing the truth, and you have to suffer from that. That despite knowing the truth, he is unable to speak and persuade the warmonger rulers or leaders to cease the war. So we have no gift to set a statement right. So they cannot persuade this kind of warmonger leaders. So it is that feeling. So the feeling of anguish is expressed here, we can say, of the poet by stating this line. And now coming down to tone. Tone means the attitude of the writer towards his reader. So tone, as we say, who is our audience? Accordingly, our tone will change. So it is our attitude towards the readers or listeners. That is why we change our tone. The writer or the speaker chooses and arranges the words differently as his audience. Whereas, as I told you, that if your professor is PhD, then he will not tell you. If you are a school child, he will not tell you that, okay, this philosopher has told this, and it is because it is hard to understand by the children. But he will tell you ABC as according to your mental capacity. Words differently as his audience varies depending on his relation to them. Besides this, the speaker's intention or aim, conscious or unconscious, it can be both, should also be taken into account. So now, Now let us see the tone. He has had enough of meddling who can please. So he, first of all, let me clarify that he can be read as a poet or as a politician. So in context of poet, let me just give you a glimpse that he, if we read it as a poet, used for a poet pronoun, that a poet has had enough of meddling who can please a young girl in the indolence of her. So he will write a romantic poetry and or an old man upon a winter's night. So he will give a kind of hope for the old men who are dying or for the ones who are just who have got some kind of despair in their life. But now, if we read he as the politicians, now he has had enough of meddling who can please a young girl in the indolence of her. So it means that the young people who are emotionally susceptible ones, this kind of dictators will speak in such a language, emotive language, as we see, that this will please them. This will give them pleasure, and by that they will lull into them in a kind of political propaganda or an old man upon a winter's night. So they will kind of throwing some kind of tin shells. Okay, this kind of policies we have brought for you, and these things are there for you. So we are doing these things for you. So it is kind of tin shells, not the things that are expected from them. So now let us coming down to the tone. What kind of tone is expressed through these lines? As far as choice of words and phrases is concerned, the reader can say that the tone of the poem put by the speaker is ironical as well as satirical. So it is satirical as well. So it is not only that ironically saying, okay, you should have to write. You are supposed to write. Where are you now? So it is that satirical as well. As discussed earlier, as we told earlier, towards the so-called intellectuals who have shut their mouths up in the wartime, during which they are more expected than others to write and attempt to seize war. So it is the satire on poets, those who have stopped speaking in these times ago. So it is the tone, the whole tone of the poem. So it is the tone directed towards the poets who have shut their mouth up in such horrendous times. Now this for intention. So intention, it is the very basic thing from out of which everything emerges, our sense and all the things. So intention refers to the effect one tries to produce. So my intention is that basically here, the poet's intention is that to seize the war, to seize the war. So it is the basic intention, and it is the effect which modifies one's expression. It controls the emphasis and shapes the arrangement. It may govern the stress laid upon points in an argument. It controls the plot in the larger sense of the word. So it controls the whole plot. Or we can say the whole plot is based upon this intention of any reader, author, or writer. So here, the throughout reading of the poem. So I have taken the whole poem here. So we can say that the throughout reading of the poem gives the glimpse of the speaker's intention, which is that the speaker wants the readers and listeners to raise their voice against such an inhuman happenings like war, and implicatively, though strongly urges poets who have shut their mouth under flare of timidity to write something that can bring harmony. So it is why timidity of these poets that in such times the poet writes something and it is considered against this dictator's speech. Right, as we saw in the 1984, nobody was even allowed to write a diary, keep a diary, and their mouth under flare of timidity to write something that can bring harmony, peace, and happiness in times like this. So, or in times like war, as the poem was written in the near aftermath of the First World War in 1915. So, it was all about the things. It was all about the language. So, we saw the two uses of language. One is scientific, which appeals to logic, and another one is emotive, which tends to produce emotion in the reader or the psyche of the listener. And we have seen these four kind of meanings. One is sense. So we saw in the sense. So what is the sense? It is basically. So let me take it from here. So intention. So whatever you are speaking, there is an intention behind this. So by intention, what will happen? You will speak a word, so it will have a particular sense, right? And after this sense, what will happen? The feeling. So what kind of feelings you have within yourself? Only then and then you will speak. First intention, and with such feelings. So intention is aroused by the feelings, and feelings are aroused by the surrounding happenings, right? So how we grasp the surrounding, it happens. It depends upon the individual psyche. So it is there, and by the feeling you will speak with the gust. So feeling is an energy, as I told you earlier. So whatever you are speaking. So now tone. So and now everything is there, intention, feeling, and now see you will speak. It will generate a kind of sense, and tone will be accordingly to according to the audience you are speaking to. It is the thing. Now I have summing up. I'm summing up rather to sum up in the words of George Watson. Again, he is saying that Richards is simply the most influential theorist of the century, as Eliot is the most influential of descriptive critics. Richards claimed to have pioneered Anglo-American new criticism of the 30s and 40s in unassailable. So he remains as a kind of cornerstone or a linchpin in the era of criticism. And here are my resources. Thank you.
Okay, so questions. Who is asking? Achalta is asking.
Neera, my question is, what is definition of poetry according to Richards?
So for the time being, I'm not aware of that. What is the definition of poetry given by Richard? So I'm not. I don't know. Yes, I don't know what I'm very.
So my question is, what do you prefer, scientific or emotional approach for reading any text?
So as far as preference of these two uses of language is concerned, so we should do both in order to gain better result out of that, right? So both are necessary for that. We cannot say if you want to function in the world, you will have to function with your logic or with your emotions. No, both are needed, but in a balanced kind of condition, right? So as we have this, who is that? Freud, Sigmund Freud, he told that giving free vent to your emotion, it will lead you. Yeah, he at some point he's right, but we have to just balance all the things. Only then we can sail through the ocean of world. Now, any other questions? Okay, thank you.